In this video, we're tackling one of the biggest problems in fantasy by focusing on the 8 questions to ask before vetoing a trade. In the past year alone, there have been over 100 threads on the subreddit r/fantasyball discussing when to veto a trade, and there's no clear consensus. So I, as a freshly minted lawyer, spent my entire weekend researching vetoes, trades, collective bargaining agreements, and coming up with the 8 rules for vetoing a trade in fantasy basketball. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love hard-hitting daily fantasy basketball content. Now, let's talk veto. The first question to ask before vetoing a trade is, did both teams get better? Because no matter how much you hate this trade, if both teams got better, it's not appropriate to veto it. But let's say the answer is no. Both teams did not get better. This brings us to our second question, which is, did the trade involve depth for talent? Think of your classic 2-for-1 or 3-for-2. Was this an example of one team getting the best player, but the other team getting 2 or more players who are must own or must roster? Every league is going to be different. If you're playing in an 8-team league, you might want to set your own league rules at each player needing to be 40% owned on Yahoo. Or if you're in a 12 or 14-team league, you might want to set it at 20% or 25%. Every league is going to be different, but the important thing is that you're not just giving waiver wire level players for a top tier talent. But it is okay for teams to go, you know what, I want to trade the best player, but I want to get depth in return. If the trade didn't involve depth for talent, then we can move on to the third question, which is, was this an injury rehab trade? And now there's 3 parts to an injury rehab trade. The first is what I call the ramp up. That's where you have a player like Ben Simmons this year who's healthy to start the season, but isn't going to be playing full minutes or be at full usage. This player is usually performing poorly in the fantasy basketball rankings, but the owner thinks that guy's going to be better once he's at full strength. This is a ramp up trade. It can lead to some pretty lopsided looking trades, because if I think Ben Simmons is going to end up being a top 40 or more player in my punt, I might be trading a top 40 or top 50 player for him when his ranking is something crazy like 220 because he's a bad free throw shooter that also is only playing 18 or 20 minutes per game like he was at the beginning of this season. The second type of injury trade is speculation. The example of this speculation trade is Anthony Davis right now. Anthony Davis goes down and has an undisclosed foot injury. People are speculating as to what it is. Is he going to be out for the whole season? Is he going to miss 2 weeks? Is it going to be 6? Making a trade for a player like Anthony Davis, who's the number 1 player in fantasy, would never be fair for a lesser player unless he was injured, which he is right now. In this type of trade, a speculation trade, one owner is gambling, and they're saying, I think Anthony Davis is going to come back this season, and I think he's going to come back soon. And the other owner trading him away is saying, oh my God, I'm so scared right now. I don't want to hold Anthony Davis any longer. This trade is perfectly okay, which leads us to the third type of injury trade, which is the known return. In a known return trade, it's usually best for like an ankle injury or a hand injury. We've already heard from the team, this player is targeting a Christmas return. This player intends to come back on January 15th. We know that they're close to returning. They've been in practices. It's a team that has a transparent window to their players' rehab. In this type of trade, it's okay for you to sack a couple weeks of winning if it means that the player values equalize at the end. So that covers pretty much everything about injury trades. But the next question to ask is, does the trade fit a punt? Because you might see an incredibly lopsided trade that makes sense once you consider each team's punt. New punt categories, it changes the values of the players significantly. Think Mitchell Robinson. He's currently the 46th best player if you don't punt in 9-cat basketball. But if you put him into a triple punt of points, threes, and free throw percentage, he's suddenly the 4th best player in fantasy basketball. That is a massive jump. It's really easy to see if a trade is being made for punt reasons, and both owners should be able to explain it. Let's go on to the next one. Does the trade fit a positional need? Now, a positional need can be something along the lines of, I have too many centers, or I have too many point guards. A lot of times what will happen is you have a build, either punting field goal percentage or punting free throw percentage, that tends to be stronger for guards or stronger for bigs. So a team will end up getting all guards or all bigs. Then they go to play in week 1 or week 2 and they realize, oh my God, I don't even have a single center or a single power forward and I can't get 10 games played. It's okay in those circumstances to make a trade that's a little lopsided if it's getting you back a center or a power forward or a point guard, whatever that position is that you don't have any of. This is called a positional need trade. And it brings us to our next question. The question is an owner stashing or trade speculating? This one's pretty rare, but I'll give you a couple examples of it. Think Christian Wood 2 years ago when he was on the Pistons and there were talks that he was going to get traded. Or think this year Russell Westbrook. Right now he's in a bench role, but if the Lakers were to trade him to a team where he could be a starter, he might go back to putting up regular triple-doubles. It's okay to make a lopsided trade if there's already clear rumors on it and the owner has a plan that this player is going to have a new role after the trade deadline. All right, guys, that brings us to the last question for this video, which is, can the owner explain the trade? Look, collusion is a word that gets thrown out a lot. Cheating is a word that gets thrown out a lot. But if you don't have proof, if you don't have text messages or a confession that these two guys are trying to cheat, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. So if you've gone through all these questions and it still isn't adding up, the answer to all of them is no. You get to this question, you say to the guy who got the crap end of the deal, you say, hey, why'd you make the trade? You might be surprised. It might turn out that he went to college with Jordan Clarkson and Jordan Clarkson's his favorite player, and that's why he wants him. It might turn out that he believes in some crazy conspiracy theory like Michael Porter Jr. is the only player that's going to be healthy because he's not vaccinated. People have crazy beliefs, but you got to give the owners an opportunity to clear their name before you call them cheaters. Finally, this one's going to be a bonus situation, and I think it needs to be considered in every veto conversation. This is if a team is mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, they do not get to make a trade. You lock their roster, you veto a trade if they make it. It's basically cheating for a team that is not able to compete in the playoffs to make a trade. Now, here's where it gets tricky. What if a team is not mathematically eliminated? Like, let's say there's 3 weeks left and they're 10 games out. So if they go 9-0 all 3 times, they might make it. In that situation, you need to look at it on a trade-by-trade basis. But that team that's on the cusp of being eliminated is not allowed to make a deal that makes it worse in the short term. They can't trade for injured players. They can't trade for bad schedules. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you think I missed something, tell me in the comment section. If you love this explanation of when you should veto a trade, go ahead and subscribe, like the video. We're going to be doing a video every day in January. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to drink the blood of your friends and crush the souls of your enemies. Fantasy Trash Talk out.